Tunde and Arike had once been the perfect couple. Their love story was the kind people admired silently, the kind that inspired whispered compliments among neighbors. In their modest three-bedroom apartment in the heart of Lagos, laughter flowed as freely as the morning sunlight that spilled through their living room windows. They had a daughter, Ewa, a lively little girl with her mother's sparkling eyes and her father's mischievous smile. Ewa was the heart of their home, the living proof of their bond, and both Tunde and Arike had always agreed that no matter what happened in the outside world, their little family would remain untouchable. At least that was what they believed. Peace, however, is a fragile thing. It can exist for years, unbroken, only to shatter in a single careless moment. It begins quietly, often in whisper rather than shout, with tiny cracks that go unnoticed until they widen into chasms. For Tunde and Arike, the first crack came softly, almost innocently. It started with small absences. Tunde, once punctual, began coming home late without explanation. He would claim work had run late or traffic was unbearable, but there was an unease in the tone of his voice that Arike could not quite place. Then, there were the little things that made her uneasy too. Her phone seemed to ring at all times with no one on the line, and Tunde noticed her small flinches when his name appeared on the screen. There was also a faint, unfamiliar perfume in the room, subtle enough that it might have been imagined but persistent, lingering in the sheets, in the corners of the wardrobe, even on Arike's coat. It was one ordinary Tuesday evening that Tunde's world tilted. He had been cleaning their bedroom when a glimmer caught his eye under the bed. Reaching down, he pulled out a bracelet he did not recognize. It was delicate gold with a small charm shaped like a crescent moon. His stomach tightened instantly. He had never seen it before. Arike, whose is this? He asked, his voice low, almost strangled. Arike turned slowly, a faint blush covering her cheek. It's my cousin's. She visited last week, remember? She said she forgot it here. She replied, trying to keep her tone calm, steady. Tunde's eye narrowed. He wanted to believe her, but something inside him had already shifted. Doubt, once a stranger in his heart, now planted itself firmly, feeding on every past warning he had ever heard. He thought of his mother's voice, sharp and relentless, ringing in his head. Tunde, open your eyes. Women nowadays, if you don't watch them, another man will watch them for you. It was a line he had heard 1,000 times growing up, and though he had once laughed it off, now it resonates with a dangerous seriousness. From the moment suspicion took root, Tunde began to scrutinize every gesture, every word, every glance. If Arike smiled too brightly at someone, he questioned why. If she spent extra time on the phone, he wondered who it was. Her outing, once routine, became a matter of calculation. Arike, sensing the shift but unsure how to combat it, grew quiet. She had always been patient, forgiving, loving, but there was only so much silence could bear. The warmth that once defined their home gradually faded, replaced by a cold, heavy tension. Conversations were clipped, smiles forced. Even Ewa noticed the change, tilting her head in confusion when she saw her parents' once happy eye clouded with doubt. Then came the breaking point. It was a Friday, the kind of evening that should have been ordinary. Tunde had returned from work earlier than usual, hoping to surprise Arike with flowers. But what he saw when he opened the door burned itself into his memory. There, in the living room, was Arike, arms wrapped around Sheun, Tunde's closest friend, her face buried in his shoulder. For a moment, the world stopped. Tunde's heart pounded in his chest as the image froze before him. His mind, fueled by weeks of suspicion, skipped reason entirely. He did not ask questions. He did not pause to consider context. All he knew was betrayal. You, how could you? He shouted, his voice a jagged blade, tearing through the quiet apartment. Arike pulled away, startled and horrified. Sheun stepped back, hands raised in innocence. But Tunde was beyond listening. He grabbed the nearest vase, smashing it against the wall. The sound of shattering porcelain echoed in the apartment like a final verdict. He stormed out that night, leaving behind all trail of anger, confusion, and the wife who did not understand how she had become the villain in a story that was not hers to tell. What Tunde did not see in that moment, the thing that might have saved them both, was the truth hidden in the quiet corner no one checks. Shehu had not come with the intent Tunde imagined. He had arrived to comfort Arike after Tunde's mother had insulted her during a phone call, calling her unfit and out of line for questioning Tunde's decisions. The hug was innocent, a moment of human empathy, but Tunde's anger was dead to innocence. Arike, humiliated and heartbroken, had no choice but to leave for a while, staying with her sister on the outskirts of the city. The apartment, once warm and filled with life, felt like a mausoleum in her absence. Tunde's world too collapsed. He drank more than usual, argued endlessly with his mother, and almost lost his job due to missed deadlines and mounting stress. The bitterness he had allowed to fester infected every corner of his life. But through the haze of pride, anger, and despair, there remained one unwavering truth. Ewa's tears. The little girl, confused by the absence of her mother and the anger of her father, clung to Tunde, asking questions he had no answers for. Her innocence pierced through his fog of rage, reminding him that while he had been consumed by suspicion, his daughter had been the silent witness to its destructions. It was weeks before Arike agreed to talk, and even then, the conversation was fraught with tension. They sat across from each other at a small cafe. Tunde's eyes were red from sleepless nights, and Arike's hand trembled slightly as she stirred her coffee. Tell me the truth, Tunde demanded, voice quivering with a mixture of anger and desperation. Arike took a deep breath. Tunde, it wasn't what you think, she said softly. She came because your mother. She insulted me. I didn't know how to respond, and it was just comforting me. That's all. For a long moment, Tunde said nothing. His mind replayed the scene over and over, twisting and turning until finally understanding broke through the haze of suspicion. Tears welled in his eyes as the enormity of what he had almost destroyed weighed upon him. I, I am sorry, he whispered, voice breaking. I let paranoia take over. I almost I almost lost you, Arike. I almost lost Ewa. I was so blind by fear. I didn't see the truth. Arike's eyes softened, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. She reached across the table, taking his hand in ease. Love, it doesn't die when we argue, Tunde, but it can with silence, with mistrust. We have to choose to see each other clearly, even when it's hard. They sat there, hands clasped across the table, the past week's pain lingering like a shadow but dimmed by the fragile glow of reconciliation. It would take time to rebuild fully, to restore the trust that had been fractured, but the first step had been taken. Over the following month, Tunde and Arike worked slowly, deliberately to mend their relationship. Tunde cut back on overtime, made an effort to communicate rather than accuse, and most importantly, listened when Arike spoke. Arike, in turn, allowed herself to express feelings she had previously buried. sharing her fears and frustration without anger or resentment. Ewa noticed the change too. Slowly, the house returned to its former warmth, filled once again with laughter and play. There were moments of awkwardness, times when Tunde would pause, hurt by the memory of his rash actions, but each was met with patience and forgiveness. The day they had their first family dinner without tension was quiet, yet powerful. The table was simple: roasted chicken, jollof rice, and Ewa's favorite fried plantains. The air smelled of home, of healing, of the small victories that made life beautiful. Arike smiled softly across the table, her eyes catching Tunde's. He reached for her hands, holding it gently. Love doesn't die when we argue, he said, voice steady now. It dies when we stop trusting. Arika squeezed his hand, her eyes glistening. Then, let's keep trusting, she replied. And for the first time in a long while, Tunde believed it could be true, that the house, the laughter, the family, they could survive even the storms, that trust, once shattered, could be rebuilt with patience, humility, and love. In the end, it was not the fight or the misunderstanding that defined their marriage, but the courage to confront the truth, to forgive, and to choose each other again. And as they watched Ewa play in the living room, their hearts lighter than they had been in weeks, they understood the most profound lesson of all. Love is not flawless, but it is resilient, capable of weathering even the hardest storm when nurtured with care. Tunde and Arike once again became the couple their neighbors admired, not for perfection, but for the strength of their bond, forged through trials, sustained by honesty, and sealed with trust. If you enjoyed this story, I am sure you will enjoy other stories that will be coming up on this channel. If you have not subscribed, kindly subscribe to this channel and don't forget to hit on the notification bell so you get notified when the next video drops. Don't forget to give me a big thumbs up and leave me a comment in the comment section. Till I come your way again in my next story, this is Bolurex saying bye for now.